2, 3, 4. What if it all depended on me to change the world, to change the world? What if my only responsibility was to change the world, change the world? Let me be the one to start a revolution, yeah. Let me sing my song to the people of the world. It all begins with one. So what kind of love can conquer disease and change the world, change the world? What can I do to make poverty history and change the world, change the world? Let me be the one to start a love revolution. Let me sing my song to the people of the world, yeah, to the children of the world. It all begins with one, the power of one, joining the hundreds, millions of people believing in one, the power of one. Don't hang around, stand up or sit down and believe we can change the world together. We can change the world together. So please don't close your eyes, and please don't turn away, don't turn away. Let your voices rise, whoa, and put love on display and make a difference now. See, I believe that you and me can make a difference now. It all begins with one, the power of one, joining the hundreds, millions of people believing in one, the power of one. Don't hang around, stand up or sit down and believe we can change the world together. We can change the world together, yeah. We can change the world together. It all begins with one. It all begins with one. You and me can make it. You and me can make it. You and me can make it better together. You and me can make it. You and me can make it. You and me can make it better together as one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Right. Hey, Yo House, what's up? We know Yo is young and old Israel. It's this idea that, and you're familiar with the Old Testament piece where it says the young and old will have visions and dreams.
Yeah.
And to me, there's something about the symbiotic relationship of the young and old that has to be together for there to be transformation. And the old being to us, not age as much as like this sense of wisdom, experience, and then character. And then young is wild, passionate, risk taker. So that's a great combo. When I think about Yo, I think about you. I think you're a combination of that. To me, you've been in music since '97. Is that right? Somewhere around there.
I think, my first record came out 96, 97. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you've been involved with, got a lot of Grammys, Dove, Stellar Awards all over the place. And we connected, I think, because of third culture, the idea of third culture. Why don't you explain about that? Like what was the connection with us so people know how you related?
Well, somebody had heard me, we have a mutual friend named Kevin Singleton, and he heard me talk, kind of sharing my story. And he said, bro, I have the book that you have to read. So he gives me your book. I am so moved by it, by the third chapter, that I had somebody in my office call somebody in your office or your publisher. And we ordered 100 of them or something. I just gave them to everybody I knew. And I just felt like, man, this guy is my soul brother. And I literally bragged about you to people like, yeah, Dave Gibbons is my friend. Before we were friends, we had some 6 degrees of separation with some friends, but we hadn't met yet. But I felt like I knew you. And I think it's because of third culture, in the sense of, when I read your book, you defined for me that one thing that I could not pinpoint about my own life. My mother was 17 when she got pregnant. My mother's white. My father was black. My mother is still white to this day. And she got pregnant when she was 17 in Waterloo, Iowa, which at the time in 1971 was almost literally 50% black and 50% white, because of some big factories that had moved from Mississippi to Iowa. They brought their workforce, and most of the workforce was black. So almost overnight, this little town became this really racially divided community. Mm-hmm. And my mother grew up in a very racist environment within her home. Mm. And so she would hear her dad talk about these black people, which had an adverse effect on her. She's like, I want to know what all the fuss is about, Yeah. So she ends up meeting my dad, falling in love, getting pregnant, and everybody around her said, listen, you need to have an abortion. You got too much ahead of you. She was a classically trained concert pianist and had all these scholarships. And she just said, no, I'm going to keep this baby. And it caused her to kind of get tossed out of the house, and she headed west. She ended up in San Diego. And when she was 8 months pregnant, a lady just walked across the street to where she was and said, hey, I don't know you, but I just felt like I had to just come tell you that you're loved and you don't have to do what you're doing alone. And I don't know anything about your story, but my mother just sits on the curb there, 8 months pregnant, and just starts to cry. Oh, wow. The lady prays a simple prayer with her. Mm-hmm. One detail I left out was that throughout her pregnancy, she was doing drugs. It was that kind of life, Mm-hmm. And so the state of California, she goes in for a checkup. They say, hey, listen, you have drugs in your system. So we're letting you know we're going to take your baby away. You're considered an unfit mother. Oh my. And so that's kind of my genesis. And when she prays this prayer, mm-hmm. my mother tells the story. She goes, I don't know how else to put it except that the need or the taste or the addiction to drugs went away. And I know that's miraculous because I know that's not normal. But when she went to go deliver me, there were no more drugs in her system. Oh my God. So they couldn't do the end around. And they even tried. I actually lived in another family for the first month of my life. I had a different name. My name was Peter. Oh no. Instead of Israel. And And that's how I got my name. The lady who prayed with her gave her a Bible, and she just literally started reading it from Genesis in the beginning. So she starts reading the Bible like a novel.
Mm.
And when Jacob's name was changed to Israel, she just said, I feel like that's the metaphor for my life and for my child, and I'm going to name him Israel, you know?
Whoa.
So in short, man, she has an older sister who came to California and basically fought the system for me.
Okay.
We reunited with my mom.
Okay.
And a year later, she met my stepfather, who's white. So my mother's white, my stepfather's white. Her and my father had split up already.
Okay.
And they went on a date on a Wednesday night. And he basically told her, he said, hey, listen, so I'm not really looking to date or anything like that. I just want to get married. So 2 weeks later, on a Wednesday night, they got married. They were married for 41 years, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And but in that, you got to understand now, I am a black kid
Right.
in a white family.
Yeah.
My siblings are white.
Yeah.
My surroundings are either white or Mexican. My parents, when I was 5, started a church in Globe, Arizona,
I know.
little mining community.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only black kid in my entire town.
Mm.
So I'm a black kid in a white family in a Hispanic church. And that's kind of my upbringing. So very much like you, like I found myself in environments where I felt like a man without a country. You know what I mean? I just felt like I'm not black enough to hang with these people. I'm not white enough to hang with these people. And even when I, you know, like you mentioned, 96, 97, I started doing music full time. Like I really started doing music full time in 1990, but I started recording
I see. Okay.
in 95, 96. And I would sit with these experts in Nashville who would go, hey man, you know, if you'll kind of tone it down, we can fit you in this box.
Okay.
You know? And there were other people who are like, if you ramp it up and be more urban,
Yeah.
we can maybe try and like squeeze you into this box.
Okay.
And I remember being so discouraged by that until Carlos Santana did the Supernatural record.
Okay.
When he did the Supernatural record, mid-90s, I go, wait, this guy, every song is a different artist with him. It's a different sound. It's a different style. And it's like, it's like the floodgates opened up to me. And I saw this kind of model of what could be. And I realized, unfortunately, in looking at the church and looking at the CCM, contemporary Christian music model, and looking at the gospel model, which is like, that could basically be divided as the white music and the black music. I found myself sort of in the middle there and not knowing what to do. And after I just politely told these experts, if I do what you're prescribing, I'm going to be losing a part of myself.
Wow.
So let me just figure out what my path is and do that.
Whoa.
And I started.
How old were you then when you said that?
That would have been 95. So I would have been 24 years old.
That's pretty bold statement to say at 24, man.
Listen, man, listen, when you come home at 7, 8, 9 years old and you ask your dad, hey, dad, what's a nigger?
Mm.
And my dad, my white dad who pastored the biggest church in our little town,
Yeah.
his face turned beet red. And he's like, who called you that? And I was like, well, my best friend, Randy, who I've been hanging out with every day, I go to his house after school every day. We watch Gilligan's Island and then I come home. Apparently his dad came home early one day and my little white friend, Randy, was like, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. And he like shoves me out the side of the house. I jump on my bike and drive home. But apparently his dad sees me. So the next day at school, he walks up to me and I was like, hey man, like everything okay? And he pushes me and calls me this name. And so I'm like, wow, what just happened? So my dad says to me that night, anybody ever calls you that again, just hit him straight in the face. And then like my dad literally takes the time to show the Pastor Houghton takes the time to show me how to hit this guy. So the next day, same kind of thing happens. And I just said to him, listen, after school, I'm going to kick your butt. Like, I'm taking you down. I'm going to
Whoa.
beat your tail.
Oh, nice.
So the word spreads through the school all day. Like, there's a fight that's going to happen after school. Get ready. And sure enough, man, we end up in this little abandoned house area. It was where all the fights happened. And I whipped this guy so bad, like to the point where I don't know how your life can flash before you in 9 years, but like 9 years of rage of something is wrong with me. I don't fit. All came out, and man, I'm smashing this guy's face into the ground, and you know, it's like terrible. Finally, the principal rips me off and calls my dad. Is like, I have your son here, which wasn't the first time, you know. But my dad goes, well, what happened? He goes, well, he was in a fight. With who? Randy. My dad said, send him home. Don't touch him. You can't spank him. Because back then, principals had those gigantic paddles.
I know.
They would bring it. So my dad said, send him home. And I came home. My dad was so proud of me. It was the craziest thing. He's like, stand up for yourself. People are not going to understand how different you are. And I guess I could have lived most of my life discouraged that I'm different. I had a different name. My name is Israel. I wanted to be Steve. You know, I wanted to be Dave. But instead, I've got this wacky name and this wacky look, and I don't know who I am, and I haven't yet embraced who I am. And I went through a lot of pain with that, but I thank God, and I love your take on it. Like, when you're third culture, you could look at it as a man without a country, or you could look at it as a tremendous gift. And once I started seeing it as a gift, and that nobody could do what I do because I'm uniquely me, and I have all these tributaries of inspiration flowing into my life and different cultural experiences, that's what makes me unique. And 25 years later, you know, New Breed has been able to take that otherness and you know, go all over the world.
You know, I'm smiling because you are such a delight. Yeah, because that's the word that comes to my mind is delight.
Oh, thanks, man.
Delight, and I imagine God just smiles when he looks at you. And there's this joy that emanates. And what's powerful for me, Israel, you know, because whenever I talk to you, is there's a sound that comes from you that it's one of those sounds that this guy has been through it, and he's thought through it. He's been not just through it once; he's been through it like multiple times. And so, you know, I'm a believer, as I'm sure you are, that pain doesn't have to just numb you. Because right now, like our society, the culture with the exposure of the racism that's been there for 400 years in our country at least, is really demonstrate the fissures that's been within our culture. So there's a deep pain that we're all in. And what I love talking about you with is the process of how do you process it and turn it into something positive? What did you do? Like, what was your mindset? Was it practices? How'd that happen?
I learned how to take pain and feeling like a misfit.
Yeah.
Feeling just, you know, you ever run into people, I know you do, like that almost have that look on their face like one shoe is a little tighter than the other. Like, I feel like most of my life was summed up that way. Like, it's a little bit, there's real tension here, but I'm going to learn how to smile. And I don't know why, and I would guess it's a gift, but I always saw the silver lining in every cloud. I've always been optimistic almost my whole life, probably up until about the last 4 weeks. The last 4 weeks, a lot of pessimism has set back in for me, unfortunately. But I still believe in the good of people and the good of people in this nation and the good of people that believe in God, you know. But I've also been equally discouraged by, you know, it's kind of what Gandhi said. I don't have a problem with Christ, but I certainly have a problem with some of his followers. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it seems, especially because both of us are from the faith background and work with churches or spiritual communities, and that's probably the most discouraging is when you see people that need to be standing up, they're not standing up. And,
or the ones that are standing up and saying some of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life.
I just
like,
read.
What is happening?
I know, but it shows the ignorance and also how people really think.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's exposing the underbelly of the Christian group,
I used to think, I don't want to be antagonistic, Dave. I
Mhm.
used to think it was ignorance.
Mhm.
I really did. And I gave a lot of benefit of any doubt I had.
Mhm.
Before Rodney King, we used to think people just didn't know. And we chalked it up to ignorance. Like they just don't know what we're going through. Kind of after Rodney King until now,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel ignorant, it feels arrogant. It feels very, not only do we not know, we do not care. And that is a rough
That's
thing
hard.
to settle, really rough.
So what are you doing to work through that?
A lot of music. A lot of music. And I think for the first time, I am speaking into things that I used to normally shy away from. I feel like, I've been a worship leader for 30 years this year. This is 30 years of full-time leading worship. I started when I was 19, I'm 49.
Wow.
And anytime something political would go down, I found myself just kind of trying to be as Switzerland as I could possibly be, just neutral.
I get it.
And then 2016 happened, right? And I saw people that for 8 years had been painfully quiet and silent. And when they did speak, they spoke really in opposition to that administration. And, and these are the same people who are now saying, we need to pray for our leaders. I'm like, I was on all of your stages. I never heard anybody pray for Obama.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not once.
Right.
But now you've got, evangelicals for Trump. And again, I don't want to make this at all political, but it's the first time that I've seen some real, we are pushing all of our weight in this direction from the church. And it's just like, okay, that's cool. But there are things I really vehemently disagree with. And then everybody comes at me with their one flag, abortion, the abortion flag. And I was like, listen, guys, based on my story, I certainly want to see every baby born healthy.
Right.
I want to see that. But you cannot fly the flag of pro-life.
Right. I know.
And it only mean in utero.
Exactly.
Because there are people on the border whose life is not valued at all right now. There are people couple weeks ago in Minneapolis who had the wrong $20 bill in his hand and ended up with a knee on his neck, and his life was not valued.
I know.
And so I'm like, if we're going to be pro-life, let's be pro-all life. Let's be pro-black life.
I know.
Let's be pro-gay life. Let's be pro-what? Because at the end of the day, when Jesus walked into a city, when Jesus dealt with those who really needed help, whether it was a woman caught in adultery, whether it was the Samaritan woman who had 5 husbands and was living with number 6, right? Jesus never came to her and said, hey, uphold the law and then come find me. He had so much mercy and compassion. And I shared something the other day. I've been reading the Gospels all over again in kind of this fresh way. Jesus was savage, man.
Yeah.
He was amazing. And the people he had the hardest time with were the religious law-keeping folk. The people he had the most time for and compassion for were people like me who were just screwed up. And I have to see that and go, if I want to be a WWJD, if I want to be Christ-like, then what is my responsibility here? To be judge, jury, and executioner, or to go the same way that lady crossed the street and shared hope with my mom for the first time in her life? That's what I want my life to be. Same thing.
Okay, so I want to shift it a little bit.
All right.
I want to shift it toward what I believe is one of your best skills is just creating. You're able to you're able to sense things, capture the essence of what's going on, and then you can kind of create something. You get really hyper focused, because I feel like people don't know that. It's like, you can kind of, you're chilling, you're checking things out, but then you go hyper focus.
There's a moment where it's like, ding, yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then you start pumping. I can see you just pumping out stuff. Okay, tell me about your creative process. What does that look like? How does that happen for you? What do you do? Is there a framework you had going on, design principles?
I mean, if I had a real framework, Dave, I would have bottled it already and sold it. So like, I feel like my framework is so ADD and HD. It just doesn't make any sense in the moment. But if I was just pressed about this the other day, I did a thing with these students from UCLA, and they said, so when you go to write, like, what prompts you, what drives you, like when you're creating, whether it's music or whether it's lyrics? And I said, a lot of times the melody and the lyric come at the same time. And a lot of times the thing I want to write about and be on the nose with, I refuse to do.
Interesting.
And instead I speak to what I consider to be the faith of it and the hope and the possible potential solution.
Okay.
So when there's a threat to society or to us personally or whatever, I tend to write, I'm not afraid. As opposed to the truth is, I'm definitely afraid right now. But there's something cathartic for me about writing from the other side of it.
Yeah.
And part of that is just the shred of belief that God is with me.
Right.
God is for me.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that shocks or surprises him.
Right.
So if I believe that, which is where faith kicks in, then I want to write from that place of faith. So I'm trying to think, okay, the housing market crashes in 2008. At this point, I had a bunch of properties in the Scottsdale area.
Yeah.
I see that bubble burst before my eyes.
Yes.
I'm watching a run on the bank. I'm watching all this stuff happen. And I sit down and I write, I just want to say, I'm not afraid. I know that you are with me. And even writing it made no sense. None. Because I'm like, no, I just want to say, what the heck is going on? That's what I really want to say. And I'm scared to death. I just want to say, oh, what the heck? I'm scared to death. I thought you were going to be with me. That's what I wanted to write. But instead, I try to write from the opposite end of that. And so it does, I feel like I have always heard it preached or said this way, like, make sure that what you're putting in you is healthy, because when you're squeezed, that's what's going to come out. So if I'm ingesting poison and negativity and pessimism, then when I get squeezed by life, that's what's going to come out. And so I've tried to be intentional about ingesting good, ingesting faith, and ingesting hope. And sometimes when there's no hope to ingest, you have to give it. So you think of some of your worst days ever. Think of bad news you got. And then maybe later that day, somebody calls you and says, man, can you please help me? I'm dealing with something so awful. And your natural human instinct would be to go, I'd love to, man, but I mean, I don't want to go tit for tat here, but I'm kind of dealing with something awful too. And instead going, I'll be right there, man. You need a truck? I need to help you move. I'll be right there. Whatever it is. And once you do good for someone and go beyond yourself and spend yourself for someone else, what it has done to your situation and your calamity is just brought a little more sunshine in, and it brought a little more just peace into it, because I got a chance to help somebody else. And so sometimes when I feel like I'm scraping the bottom of the hope barrel, I just try and go offer that to somebody else. And it's amazing how that account fills back up.
And
Yes,
I
sir.
like that you're becoming who you're supposed to be.
I'm
You're,
loving it.
you're owning your voice. You're owning your design, bro. So I've seen you evolve into this wonderful being, literally being, you know. And so that's the best place to
Doing,
be.
being, yeah.
That your being. So,
Yes, sir.
hey, Israel, thanks, man.
Thank
Thanks.
you, my brother.
All right.